Being in these streets, damn, something's gotta change. God's got something for me, so until the day comes, I'll pray.
Okay, this is a friend of mine. His name is Vincent Sherrill. Anybody out here know Vincent Sherrill? Okay, yeah. He's been tapping in. We've been staying in touch for quite some time. And I asked him to come in and speak a little bit since he's one of the people that's still inside. And for him to talk a little bit about his experience and what he's been doing to try and heal through that. You on, Vince? Ready?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, first and foremost, just really thankful for being in this space with y'all and being in this space and just recognizing that there's spaces that exist in the neighborhood of my childhood. I have to start off first by being this is really the first time for me publicly speaking to my community. I'm the first apologizing, for the harm, for the tragic harm, that impacted and still impacts so many lives that I'm still dealing with. So just first and foremost, just keep it out of that. I know it's not much. But I appreciate doing it on the state space. I have the opportunity to just express that. Me and Larry go back a long time, the beginning of everything. Was called. Larry was allowed to come out of the county jail to see. I still have the flash and everything on my head and my eyes. Larry came through and was speaking to me. And it was like, that was so needed. I was in the hole, deep in the hole in the county jail. And just really going through, not having all my faculties at that time. I was as clear-minded as I am today. Thank God for that. Just to be able to pull up out of PCP-induced mind that I possessed at that time. And so Larry brought the wonder, he brought the community's concern for me, the community's questions of what's going on.
We got a few things here we want to close up with. I don't know if he was able to hear what Vincent was talking about, but he was talking about, in addition to what he's had to go through, the pain that he's had to go through, what he was also talking about some of the steps that he's been taking in his life right now, okay, to work on himself, to work on that pain, since there hasn't been the resources available, okay? And that's one of the things I'm hoping that we can start today, knowing what types of resources that our people need that are still incarcerated, knowing what resources that they need out here, that we can start being advocates, because not everybody has to go, thank God, through the situation of having to be incarcerated, having loved ones being taken from us for long periods of time, okay, to be able to impact that situation for someone else. You feel what I'm saying? So we want to start taking a look at how we can start building that community. Dr. Marcia Tate, not only is she our illustrious leader over here, but I asked her to come and talk about one of the things here that we in the community of Hilltop already have implemented. And I'm sure everybody has heard about healing circles, right? You've heard about healing circles. Come in that it just kind of touched down, didn't we? Yes. So Dr. Marshall, could you come and just share a little bit about what the community is doing on that end?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Larry. And thank you for what you're doing. Give him a clap. I want to say, Vincent Sherrill, I love you. You know that. And I'm just so glad to see you contributing to society on the outside. Keep Keep it up, black man. All right. And you know, before I talk about the healing circle, I gotta tell you, I spent a decade at Monroe Prison. And although I had never been to prison, my job there was to teach. And I was invited by Mary Flowers to come for a visit for Kwanzaa. And after that, I never left. People told me, oh, you can teach through the, it was prison, no, education, no, it was something behind bars. UBB, University Behind Bars, thank you. And that's how I began teaching at Monroe. And yes, Kamanti was one of my number ones. Thank you, Kamanti. Also, Vincent was one of my students, and I really speak to them with great respect because they taught me how to teach. You know, I can teach, I learned the fundamentals, but you know, when you're talking heart to heart, and you're really invested in somebody learning, you have to understand who you're dealing with. And so the heart open helps you to do that. And that's what inside the prison helped me to learn what teaching really was. And much respect, much respect. Some brilliant people inside there. And I just want to say a thing about grief. Because I understand grief did not begin in poverty. Grief did not begin because somebody disrespected me. Grief did not begin in, you know, the history of civil rights. Grief goes way back. It's generational. We've been dealing with it for multiple generations. Okay, and in particular, not just black people. All people have been dealing with this grief of coming into a country, of taking other people's land from them, of being able to live here and steal everything to say you are rich and other people are poor, to create the inequality we have created in this country. That's all what the grief is about. And for black people, grief started in those ships. When you're laying in the bottom of a ship for not weeks, but months, and you don't know where you're going, you don't know where your next destination is, and you don't know where your mama and your daddy are, your children, your cousins, your brother and sisters, that's grief. Okay, and we went through that. We came here without knowing what happened to the people behind us, who were left behind, and we got here and we didn't know what was about to happen. And some of us knew we had to survive that horrible, horrible tragedy. And we did. That's why we're still here today. We, for all intents and purposes, should no longer exist. There are all kinds of people in the world who have gone extinct. All right? But we're still here. And we need to really think about that grief, because grief also causes resiliency. Now, one of the things that happened to me, and I'll never forget it, I don't know if you were there, Kamanti, but it was actually one of those classes that Willie Williams was teaching, and you know, I was talking about going back to your family and how family has been disintegrated. So what ways are you going to go back and give and be a part of a unit? And this brother raised his hand and he said, what if you don't have a family? Or what if the family you have is the reason you are here? And I thought, wow, I didn't even know anything about that. You know, and that's why it's really important not just to tell, but also to listen, right? Because you got to understand what you're dealing with. And this person said that it was, you know, the grief, the trauma that he dealt with came right out of his family. So if he was going to heal, it couldn't be right in going back to the family. That just wasn't going to work. So we don't look at everything as a cookie cutter approach across the board. Everybody's dealing with something. And one of the things I think really helped, because I went to a wedding on Saturday, it was a beautiful wedding. Everyone looked so gorgeous and beautiful. And I thought, wow, God has allowed us to experience this beautiful occasion. I went to another event last week. What was that? We were all together. with the BPC folk? Was it a meeting we had here? There's just so many things that are productive and good, and it reminds me that when you're in prison, just because you were in prison doesn't mean you're no longer part of a community. And we have reciprocity. You don't just take from a community, you have to give to the community too. All right? And that's how it has worked. For millennium, that's how it works. That's how we do it. So once we remember who we are and understand where we came from, then we can't go wrong. We have a blueprint. The ancestors have left it for us. So we are always a part of the community, whether or not we are physically here or physically in prison, wherever we are. When we get out of that situation, when we come back home, we are in community. And I was looking at what you wrote, what you had on the board. Illness starts with what? I. But wellness starts with what? We. So there's no healing that can happen in your own little self. No. You've got to be a part of a community. You've got to be a part of somebody. You've got to be accountable to people. You've got to have people watching you. You've got to have a witness in your life. All right? And to your life. All right? And that's when we start to get healthy. When you start to give some advice to somebody else. You're not just taking it, me. Well, if that didn't happen to me, forget about that. What are you doing for other people right now? That's where the healing begins. And so as we're here together, remember, wellness, not illness. We're leaning into wellness and not illness. Okay. So Larry asked me to actually get up here and talk about the healing circle. Thank you. The healing circle that happened right here during COVID when this entire block had, I believe it was 49 tents. And it surrounded Evergreen. We couldn't even get in the building. Everybody was living here. And actually it was Larry who took me around the building. And we had some water. I think we had a few, things we were giving people as a gift, right? And then we invited them. We said, well, next week if you come, we're gonna have a gathering. Let's just get together and talk about it. And that week we got together and we had a little circle. It wasn't that big at first, and we said, let's get a microphone, get some music. Do you know the most powerful thing in my view that happened over that about 4 to 6 week period was the number of people from the community who came to partner with us. I mean, there were people here who did HIV testing, they were doing COVID testing, they were giving out food. We had lived experience they were not that old of an organization. They had cards from the Visa cards that if you found yourself in the circle, you would get a card. They were feeding people from Ezell's. And you were there, that's right, Faraji, you were right in the circle. And people started really sharing their lived experience, They talked about how they got homeless. So many people had gotten homeless were from the Hilltop. And the Hilltop is a changing neighborhood. See, that trauma doesn't go away. This is all part of the trauma. So people are displaced, walking around and living in Hilltop but have no home. And some of them had issues with mom, so they couldn't go back to mom's, they got to be out, but they knew that this was still home, right? Well, we got to talking so much, we had several workshops just right out in our parking lot. And to the extent that we started talking about, do you know you have the right to vote? Do you know what your rights are as citizens? We started empowering. People were getting Visa cards. They were even talking about where they were going to move to. And it wasn't long after that the mayor said, move them out. Because we were empowering people. They knew they could vote. Uh-oh, there's trouble coming. And we did not end the homeless situation. I'm not going to pretend like we did. But one thing I think we did was we had a human conversation with other human beings who are not homeless. They are in a condition in which they don't have a house. See, but they're still human beings. And just like we told those brothers in prison, just because you're in prison doesn't mean you don't have a community. We say the same thing to people who don't have a house. Doesn't mean you are no longer part of the community. And it was powerful, it was empowering, because people were seeing the power they had. They thought it was useless, they had given up. And now here they were finding out, oh, we could do something about this. Not only that, we can help somebody else. And we think out of that came community building. And it was a beautiful thing. We really worked with the people in the community. They were moved out. I still see some of them from time to time. And I want to honor you, Larry, because I think that this imagery of people who were incarcerated or had no home, right? There's some negative connotation behind that doesn't even belong. Like, where did that come from? That not having a house or being like, where did we get off saying you're still, a victim? You're still victimizing people. You're still in that status. No, you're not in that status. So I think what happens when we come back into community and remember our greatness, remember whose we are, where we came from, who we are, and what our work is on this earth. When we get to that place, then we know we have work to do and we are all relevant. And I just want to honor the experience that brothers and sisters have being locked up, because that cannot feel good. It was hard for me to go teach and hear the clang behind you. It's like, ooh, that's not nothing nice. So to live in that condition is a very difficult one. So I want to honor you for surviving it. And not only that, I see more brothers I taught inside prison. Outside, I know something was going on right. I know something right was happening. And I don't see them going back in, not the way they were looking at that wedding the other day. There's some people who are very committed. I may not be living the life I want, but I know one place I'm not going back to. You know. And what we have to do is support each other. Because when one person goes to prison, it's been said, your mama goes to prison, your daddy goes to prison, your neighbors go to prison, your cousins go to prison. Everybody goes to prison. All right, that cannot be good for building community. So right now we're going to focus on building community. It's all about the circle. I envisioned, as you spoke today, we could have a circle right now. And we could sit in that circle and talk about the trauma we have faced. And I don't care if you were incarcerated or not, everyone has faced trauma. And everyone has faced a situation they did not know how to get out of. And let's just be honest and have that conversation. Because I might learn from somebody who's been incarcerated. And somebody who's incarcerated might teach somebody else and might learn from somebody who works with incarcerated folks. So we're all here for a reason. We're here to uplift. We're going to raise the vibrations of the hilltop today with the work we are doing. Yes, let nobody come back. Let nobody come back to the hilltop and say, I'm here to gangbang. See, first of all, I got to tell you, gangs are not always bad. All right, we turn them into bad. And don't forget, there's a system that made sure that people who had to feed their babies were going to get drugs and doing those drugs, and now they're in prison, and we're looking at him. Well, let's look at the system that didn't bother to give him a job. You know, or a proper education. Do you know that the average person in prison has a 10.2-year-old level of education? education. That's 4th grade. That's not. You think you was gangbanging and you got yourself in prison? I'm gonna give you a little credit for that. But I want you to know there's a system out here, and this system knows exactly what the plan is. You are just part of it. So it's so important once we know that to never be part of it again. And part of that means we got to step back, we got to embrace good living, we got to go on and educate ourselves so we understand what the system has to offer and how to take what we need and how to build our own systems that win. Because we're a winning people. We should have been extinct, but we're still here. So we are a winning people. That's what we're going to stick with. I'm going with the winning ticket. And I think all of us need to go on and win, because that's what we are capable of. So with that, I hope I said
it. Tired of being in these streets. Damn, something's gotta change. God's got something for me. So until the day comes, I'll pray. Keep your head up. Take it from me. All you gotta do is pray.